Hi guys. Most of you probably already know me, but if you don't, I'm Shiloh. And I'm here to give out free stuff. Like Oprah. Look under your seats. Just kidding. First off, I have to say that this is very raw. What you're about to hear is not kid friendly, and it includes very personal details about my real life. I'm doing this out of obedience to God and what He's called me to do. I pray that this touches your heart in a way that makes you grateful for where you are today, or urges you to realize that you can't do it without God. Also, that no matter what happens, through all the trials, and even through the victories, you gotta love God, no matter what. Okay, so if I told you my whole story, you'd be here all day, so I have to shorten it up. I mean, who really wants to sit and listen to me all day? What I thought was my testimony was actually just the beginning. It will never end, for me or for you. I was not raised as a Christian. I didn't learn about God until later in life. My mom was a single parent, doing her absolute best to raise 3 girls on her own. I grew up watching scary movies with little to no rules. I ate what I wanted. I went where I wanted. I was totally reckless. I chose what I did for the most part. This proved to be very detrimental in my adult life. Parents, your kids need guidance and discipline, okay? We all know that, but just a reminder. My dad was not around. I went to his house on weekends, but I didn't like it. Or him. He was and still is on drugs. Pray for my dad, y'all. Anyway, I got pregnant at 16, which was really no surprise. When my mom found out, she kicked me out. She basically said, if you're old enough to have a baby, you're old enough to do it on your own. Sorry, Mom. Anyway, I pretty much thought I'd be fine and that I could do it all on my own. I was a typical teenager. I was probably 8 months pregnant when the abuse started. It was the first time I had ever been hit by a man. I played my part in the fight. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fighter. But I lost, and I was knocked unconscious, and I came to in a bathtub completely naked. I had been punched in the face, and I couldn't even open my eye. I had a roommate at the time, and she took me to the hospital. I stayed for 2 days. It was horrible. But there was much more to come. Had I known it wouldn't change, maybe I would have left. But probably not. I loved him, and he knew it. On February 5th, 2002, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. My son is honestly the only reason I held on through all this trauma. I did not know the Lord then, but until I did, my son was my excuse for not giving up. Not that I didn't beg God to die many times, because I did. But seeing that my son only had me, I pressed on. This part of my life is called terror. I'm fast forwarding through a whole lot of troublesome years. Years full of horror, full of trips to Chicago for weeks at a time, even losing my jobs just to try and hide my bruises. I would stay there until the bruises went away. I remember one time very clearly. It was Valentine's Day, and early in the morning someone buzzed my buzzer at the apartment that we lived in. I woke up and looked out the window and saw an old black man standing outside. I had no idea who this guy was. It didn't matter what I said, though, because he thought I was cheating on him with this old black guy. I was basically drug out of the house, struggling to carry my son's car seat down 3 flights of stairs. And as soon as we got into the car, I was told this was my last day on earth. He was going to kill me in the woods next to his parents' house. The whole drive over there, he hit me repeatedly in the side of my face. I tried to slow down as I was the one driving so I could jump out. I actually tried to open my door while I was driving. It just made him more angry and the punches got harder. When we arrived, he brought my son into his parents' house. Why didn't I just leave, you ask? Until you're in this kind of situation, you would never understand why I didn't just jump out of that car and run as fast as I could. When he came out of the house, I turned and looked at him. I don't know if it was the blood from my eye or if he was possessed, but his eyes were fire red. He came to my door and he opened it up. "You ready to die?" he said. I got out of the car and began walking shamefully towards the woods. I was so scared. I peed my pants for the first time as an adult that day. This was the first time that I remember praying since I was about 9 years old and went to an Awana class with a neighbor. I didn't want to die. Not like this. I asked God out loud to save my life. As we were approaching the woods, he changed his mind and said I wasn't worth going to jail for. This was the reason for one of those Chicago trips. I actually left right away without bringing my son or any of my belongings. I didn't even tell my family I was leaving. He drove all the way to Chicago with me in the passenger seat, crying, scared, and in wet pants. Oh, I said I was fast forwarding, so now I really am. When I got pregnant with my daughter, there were quite the set of circumstances. In the weeks prior, he had been arrested and released for yet another felony domestic abuse. I'm pretty sure he has 7 felony domestic abuse charges. This time, he didn't show up for court, and he was running from the law. He didn't want to be caught, and essentially had nowhere to hide. So what did he do? He lived in the trunk of my car for an entire week. Yep, I said my trunk. He slept and ate in there. He was in there while I worked, while I slept, even when I went to family events. I was so embarrassed when my sister found out. I had made it a normal behavior to live in a trunk. When he decided he was sick of living in the trunk, we decided to go out of town to a hotel. While we were there, I convinced him to turn himself in and get some mental help and take care of his warrant. On our way back, he manipulated me into admitting that I too needed mental help. I knew I probably did, as I just helped him live in a trunk, but I knew that a mental hospital was not where I needed to be. This was way before the cell phone days, so there really wasn't an easy way out. All of a sudden, a plan came to me. I thought if I could get a hold of one of my friends, she could tell the hospital we were coming and tell them that I was going to lie and say I needed help, and he would get help and he would get arrested. It was like foolproof. So we stopped for gas, and I went in and called her on a payphone. Who remembers payphones? Wow, that's crazy. I don't even think we have a payphone anymore. Where's Superman supposed to go? Just kidding. Thank God she answered the phone. She agreed, and we went to the hospital. We walked in. We told the nurses we were suicidal. That's how you get admitted. Don't ask me how I know that. About 15 minutes after we gave them our names, the police surrounded our room. There was like 6 police officers. They asked me to step out and talk with them, and right away he knew something wasn't right, and he started freaking out. They had to restrain him, and he was taken away within minutes. They told me they had gotten a call from my friend, and, I remember the officer saying, "This was a brilliant plan. Like, how did you think of this?" Obviously, looking back, God is the one who gave me the plan. He, of course, was admitted to a mental ward, one of the several times that this would happen. As I'm speaking now, he's currently in a mental institution. About a month later, I found out I was pregnant. I had gotten pregnant in the hotel. I was horrified. I did not want to bring another child into this madness. My life was crazy. I just had my kid's dad living in my trunk. I decided to make a decision that I would forever regret. I took the Plan B, the morning after pill. According to statistics that I just read, it prevents 99% of unplanned pregnancies from becoming babies. Well, that's my Amijah, the 1%. Some of you might know her, and she truly is the exception. I knew the pill didn't work, even as I was taking it. I just knew. I guess God said, "Nope, I want her here." I am so thankful to this day that it didn't work. Where would I be without my Mijah? To sum it up, this pregnancy was really weird. I remember waking up one morning and my house was destroyed. There were Native American books spread all throughout my house and hanging on the wall. There were ramen noodles crunched up, leading a trail to the bathroom where I found all kinds of pots and pans in my bathtub, on my toilet. I mean, they were everywhere. There were alphabet magnets spelling weird things all over the refrigerator. He was wearing my pants and a button-up shirt. They were both on backwards. After I made sure my son was okay, I asked him, "What is going on?" He replied in a language I had never heard before. He continued speaking in that language until he was taken in by the police and eventually civilly committed to a mental hospital. Looking back, I can clearly see that was demonic. On the outside, I was completely normal. I was excelling at work. I've been working at Olive Garden for 10 years now. My son had perfect attendance at school, and he had great remarks. His teachers always loved him. I even went to church every week. Right here at Good News. I was very good at putting on a happy face and acting like everything was okay. However, during service, I would cry and cry and cry some more. People probably thought I was crazy. But I would continually give my life to the Lord week after week after week. And then I would go home and return to Crazyville, where he was, being crazy, walking around the house with a lamp in his hand, singing Mahalia Jackson to my pregnant stomach, eating raw meat, and not sleeping for days. Nobody had any idea what was going on in my home. Even this testimony is an extremely small portion of what was really happening. One night, when I was laying in bed, watching TV, and I was smoking a blunt, I clearly heard God say in my head, "Go now." I didn't know if I was just high or what, but it happened 3 times before I got the urgency in my spirit that if I didn't leave, something bad would happen. You guys probably know that feeling, right? Yeah, when you know if you don't go, you're in trouble. Well, I decided to go. I took my kids and I went to my mom's house. I really didn't know what was about to happen, so I didn't take anything with us, which will lead to a future miracle I will get into later. That night, I called the one lady who I knew was firm in Christ, my lovely sister, Sharia. She had been praying for years for me to leave him and knew exactly why I heard the words in my head. I gave my life to the Lord that night. I did something I would never suggest doing. I basically demanded that if God wanted me to follow him, he would have to provide specific things. Like I said, I don't recommend putting demands on the Lord. I mean, you don't go around telling God what to do. But I was naive, and I didn't know any better. Fortunately, as he promises, he is faithful. Within a week, God did what I asked of him. This just goes to show that God can and will speak to you, even if you're on the bed smoking a blunt. And he will provide for you if your heart is sincere before him. Wouldn't you know, my kid's dad wouldn't give me any of my belongings back. I told God, possibly in a bossy way, that I couldn't move into the house that I just got if I didn't have any stuff. I really was just bossy, and just as looking back, I'm like, who did I think I was? At this time, though, I was very private. Nobody knew anything that was going on in my life, especially not at work. So I knew it was God because the day after I signed my lease, a coworker announced that she had a friend who was moving into another state and getting rid of her whole house for free. That very night, that friend and her dad and her brother moved everything into my house for me. God provided it all. Beds, blankets, furniture, silverware, TVs, literally everything. I was astonished. I could not believe that God did what I asked him to do. This would just be the first time. of many that God would blow me away with providing for my family.